And I don't think he's ever at a loss for words. So, Mr. Bedwell, if you would come speak to us for a minute while we continue meeting. After Danny's done at 5:30, we're going to hear from Aaron Bartell, who's the chairman of the Jackson County affiliate. He's going to present to us. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce him. So as soon as Danny's done at 5:30, Aaron, if you would come speak.
Right, buddy.
Thank you very much. I thought I was done with this stage. I want to say this, that I do pledge 100% of my support to Mario Barnes and the new chairman. I've been doing this a long time, politics. I involve myself in other people's races. I've offered campaign advice. You know, as a former chairman of this party, I got advice all the time. One of the things they would say is, I'd answer the phone and they'd say, you know, what you need to do is this. And all these people would give me advice. I finally took someone's advice and threw my hat in the ring. And I love every minute of it. When we do this, when Joey Robinson decides to throw his hat in the ring, it's a sacrifice. He sacrifices his family, his name, he puts his entire life out there in the public view. People will all of a sudden start searching his tax records. They will Google his house and find out where he lives. That's a tremendous sacrifice, especially for anyone. Most libertarians, we just want to be left alone. That's me, I just want to be left alone. When you become a candidate, you throw yourself in the public view, and you do it intentionally. So, I guess I'm talking about myself here. I think candidates make a tremendous sacrifice, and like Joey said, he needs something in return for that sacrifice. And we're talking money, of course. Every campaign is won or lost by money. Mine is no different. I've made a stand that I'm not going to accept corporate money. I'm not going to accept money from political action committees. I want individuals. And I've come up with a plan called 1,000 or 1,000 for 100. And what this means is 1,000 people give me $100 and I will win this election. My political opponent intends on spending $450,000 for this race. I can prove libertarian efficiency. I'll win this race for $100K. But I've got something more than that. We win or lose every single race on our logic, on our arguments that we make. We compare our arguments with their arguments. Right now, in my race in North Mississippi, there's a Republican on the ballot and a Democrat on the ballot. We as libertarians see that as one and the same. They are what I call central planning authoritarians. They think that wise men such as themselves can decide what is best for the rest of us. And I'm the candidate there going, no, actually, I heard the phrase today, spontaneous order. Actually, I know what's best for me. So, I'm a limited government guy, and I make the limited government argument. What I do is I say, no, I'm not interested in whether we want No Child Left Behind, or Common Core, or any other curriculum standard that comes down from Washington, D.C. I'm not interested. It might be good, but you know what? My argument is we need to shut down, defund, and dismantle the Federal Department of Education. These are the arguments we have to make. We have to paint ourselves different. We have to say, yes, my opponents want to keep funding it. They just want to fund it differently, and they want to do different things. A limited government guy, a truly limited government guy, wants to shut down that federal department. I've got a long list of federal agencies that I would like to dismantle. The Department of Homeland Security for one.
Yes.
A little reorganization, restructuring. We are hearing now about the NSA and all of their wireless eavesdropping that they're doing through the public airwaves. I want you to think about that phrase or that title of that agency, the National Security Agency. What is that? Isn't our military about national security? And if they're not, we don't need them. So what I'm trying to say is the reorganization, I would put the responsibilities that the NSA have right now, I would put that within the Department of Defense and let them worry about national security. And of course, I am a non-interventionist. We still got troops in Germany and Korea and Colombia. We need to bring these guys home. I am retired military. So I am retired military. And it would break my mother's heart if she knew her little boy died on some foreign shore for some silly reason, right? There are some things worth giving your life for, and there are other things that would just break your mother's heart, knowing that you gave your life for something silly. So we need to bring our troops home, put them in charge of national security once again, and quit this empire building imperialism that we do. My big push is on economics. The way we fund our government, the latest budget they passed put us $600 billion deeper in debt. My political opponent will say he has reduced the budget deficit. The budget deficit in 2013 was $1.3 trillion. Because of the new budget, we're only $659 billion in excess. That's $659 billion of new debt. He didn't reduce the budget deficit, he gave us more debt. He says he has a plan that will reduce the budget deficit down to $420 billion in 2 more years. Well, there's another $420 billion deeper into debt. If you add it up, it comes up to $1.5 trillion deeper into debt over 2 years. But he's claiming he's reducing the budget deficit. You understand the math? We can't do that. There is a sane way to fund our government. We have to address the spending. We have to address our methods of taxation. I publicly say I want to repeal the 16th Amendment, do away with the IRS and the income tax. If there was a magic button that I could push that would make that happen, I would not do it. I wouldn't do it because there's too many people dependent on it. And if you push that magic button that did away with the income tax and most taxation, federal taxes, old people will die. And I hate to say it like that, but there's too many people that will suffer because of it. So the humanitarian in me says what we have to do is we have to transition slowly over a period of 3 or 4 years. Transition slowly. Real slow. And change our method of taxation to where we can now fund the required functions of government, but at the same time put the method of taxation, put the taxes raised back at the county level and at the state legislatures, and put the money, the decision-making authority for how that money is spent, put it at the county level, closer to the people it was taken from.
There you go.
It was actually the system of taxation that was put into our Constitution 230 years ago. A series of imposed excises and duties. Many of you have heard me talk on this before, so I'm not going to bore you here. But through a series of imposed excises and duties, we can still fund government. And most of these taxes are voluntary, kind of. They're voluntary in the sense that if you do not want to pay the tax, don't buy the cheeseburger. If you do not want to pay the tax, do not export your cotton. If you don't want to pay the tax, don't build the railroad. So there are ways that you can get out of paying taxes, and you don't have the federal government saying, give me your money or I'll shoot you. Because that's what the income tax is. So we have to address our debt and our budget deficit. Our debt, we're $17.3 trillion in debt. What does that mean? Who are we in debt to? Just so you know, China, thank you very much, and they're dumping their T-bills as we speak. When we say we're in debt, we borrow money from companies and we give them treasury bills. That foreign country now has a piece of us. He's holding a piece of our debt that he can cash in at any time. We have to pay him for it. I don't want to be in debt to anyone, and there is a way to get out of this debt quickly. I'm talking about reducing spending. I'm going to say we repeal, dismantle, defund the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, Department of Education. Then we go do lunch and we work on some more the next day. But I want you to be clear here. There is no magic button. If there was a magic button that you could push that just did all that immediately, I probably wouldn't do it. We have to transition to that. But you know what? Someone has to go to Washington and make the argument to do that. The people we have up there now, they're not making the arguments. They're not making the arguments that we need to shut down and defund and dismantle the Department of Agriculture. They're not making that argument. They're just arguing over how we fund it. So what I want to do is go to Washington, D.C. and make the argument that no one else is making. And they don't want me there. Because I can honestly balance this budget. One person cannot balance the budget. You've got to have what's called the power of influence. You've got to get your other congressmen off in the corner and explain it to them and get them on your side. I really do have this power of influence. I think I can get these guys, get them off in the corner, find your limited government Republicans and Democrats, and say, look, we cannot sustain this. We're going to have to do something. And I can convince them. The problem is the Republicans and Democrats that we elected sit up there now, they're playing party politics, and they go right along with their parties. So the only way we can defeat them is to replace them. So that's what we want to do. At this point, I would entertain questions. Does someone have a question they want to know my policy on? The Second Amendment. I heard something yesterday and I just love it. The First Amendment is your right to say anything you want, anytime you want. The Second Amendment says you get to finish your sentence. I heard that yesterday and I liked it a lot. Yes, sir, in the back.
I hear on the radio all the time, and I was listening to a replay of Sean Hannity on the way here, and all they're talking about is jobs, 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 jobs. Can you tell me what clause of the Constitution gives the government the right to discuss jobs?
Yes, I can. If you look in Article...
It's right there.
I'm sorry, did you hear it? It's not in the Constitution. There is a clause to regulate commerce, but if you read the Commerce Clause, it does not give Congress the authority to regulate commerce between individuals, commerce within a state. It does not give them authority. It took about 150 years of getting liberal judges appointed to the Supreme Court to come up with a Supreme Court that says that a farmer that raises corn to feed his hogs is somehow considered interstate commerce and therefore can be regulated. And that's just a perversion of the Commerce Clause. Yes, in the very back.
Bedwell, could you define your position on the fair tax? And also, what would you do to respond to the highest corporate tax rate in the world for for businesses? How can we encourage business growth?
Where do I stand on the fair tax and also on corporate taxation? The fair tax, if you don't know, is a consumption tax, is a federal consumption tax. Supposedly the end user of a product or service pays 100% of the tax. And to explain why this is important, why we need to change it, under the current system, I want you to think about the little pencil. Before little Johnny buys that pencil in Walmart, that little pencil is taxed about 15 or 20 times. The landowner that owns the land, he is taxed on it. The logging company that comes in there to cut the tree down, he is taxed on his diesel fuel, on the timber tax. When he takes it to the sawmill, the mill worker that turns it into the pencil, he is taxed. The truck driver that takes the pencil to Walmart, he is taxed. And that little pencil, before little Johnny can buy it in Walmart, that little pencil, Johnny's gonna pay 7% tax on that pencil as well. That little pencil has been taxed about 15 or 20 times before Johnny can buy it. The consumption tax fixes that, the fair tax. I would support the fair tax as a temporary measure. I like the fair tax because it requires a couple of things. The fair tax requires that we repeal the 16th Amendment. Not necessarily repeal the 16th Amendment, but we end the income tax. The income tax is ended. There is no more IRS. And then we can work on repealing the 16th and 17th Amendments. I see the fair tax as a transition. I talked about pushing the button. I would like to transition to the fair tax for about a year or less, just so we can repeal the 16th Amendment in the income tax and then eventually revert back to impost and excises at the county level. My problems with the fair tax as a long-term solution, the fair tax is a direct tax. And I'm against all direct taxes. There has to be some sort of filter mechanism between my money and my government. So, back to the corporate tax. High corporate tax rates. That goes away as well. I'm not opposed. I am a business owner, so you know. And I work in about 30 different states, and I export. The problem with the corporate tax is that it is too high. And it's also a direct tax. It goes straight to the federal government. We have to stop this. And our impost, an impost is basically a consumption tax or a sales tax, actually. A sales tax at the county level. But it only applies if your product leaves the county. And it's a little complicated to get at, but we can still use imposts and excise to fund our government. And I would not be opposed to a corporate tax if it was an impost.